Dr. Raghuraj Puthige, who is a medical communications and clinical research professional and India's first qualified yoga and naturopathy physician who have completed his BNYS in 1994 with 25 years of research, academic and clinical corporate experience. Currently, he is working as a medical director in Sai Walk Healthcare Consulting Private Limited, Hyderabad. He held various roles and grew to leadership positions in well-known MNCs like Novartis, Accenture, in medical and scientific writing fields, and he is also an honorary consultant foundation for assessment and integration for traditional health systems. Bangalore since 2014, advisor for research methods, and he is an advisor for research methods in NI in Pune and advisor for Adi Bharat and non-government organization in New Delhi. He is also worked as a psychophysiology of voluntarily regulated yogic breathing, which have several research publications in peer-reviewed journals and contributed significantly further in understanding the science of yoga breathing. With this small introduction, I request you to, like, I give my wholeheartedly welcome you to come on this platform and join your experience and knowledge with all of us. Thank you so much, sir, to come on this platform.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Bhavit. So before we get into the actual topic and discussions with the entire the viewers and listeners here, could you please let me know what is this platform is all about? Who's going to benefit? If you could really
Yes,
give a
sir.
quick background, then
Yes,
it will help me to address.
sir. It's like a platform on your group, which is started for the students who are from the BNYS community, where they can get the free education from the different doctors around the field, from the different learning perspective, which is not seen in the college duration. And
Okay.
through the different doctors, we have 200 plus students are connected with this platform. Due to exams or some other reasons, only few students are able to join today. But the YouTube link will be shared to these people so they can understand future, like in future, to learn from you, sir. And we have conducted 42 and 43 doctors already the talks. So it will be the 43rd and 44th talk with you, sir. So it is very great for us to call you on this platform and to regulate to form this platform as for every student in the, and we have, sir, 10 to 12 colleges connected from all over the India
Okay.
on this platform, sir.
Okay, so which means this is now students and probably the faculty are also who are joined in this particular platform from all over India, right?
So mostly 98% students are there, 1 or 2% if
Okay,
faculty is
good, good.
newcomers, not
Okay,
the seniors.
okay,
Yes, sir.
okay, great. Good initiative, Bhavit. I think this is a very good idea,
Yes,
and
sir. Now we have a team of 25 people, sir, and it's like we are not looking for the numbers. If people are interested to learn,
right,
the
right,
numbers are not
right,
much, sir.
right. And it can be perfectly can be understandable because of the current running pandemic. There is a lot of webinars are ongoing, and everybody must have been really tired and exhausted of webinars. So it's good time to even take it a little bit slow, but learning definitely can continue, and it should be in your own pace,
Yes,
right? So that you can consume better and then progress.
yes, sir.
So good initiative, and then I welcome to the all one and all the student community of naturopathy and yoga from I think all over the India, and it's good to I would have personally would like to meet in person, and probably if things becomes better, probably we'll have a chance to meet with each one of you,
Yes, sir.
and if your bandwidth permits, probably I would like to see you if you can put on the videos, so that it becomes much more better to connect with each one of you. And in this platform, I was checking with Bhavit, saying that this is not going to be one of the kind of just a lecture or sharing knowledge. So you must have been actually like getting a lots of knowledge from other people around. What I would wanted here is that to have an interaction with you guys. Wanted to understand what is that you want to get from me, learn from my experience. I'm just here to share my experiences in this field and my own personal ups and downs, so that probably that can help you in one or the other way. um, and can give you a little more guidance, what probably like instead of like what to be doing, what not to be doing, probably like you can learn better on those lines, as well, right? So in that perspective, I had asked Bhavit, and he could collect few questions. And probably Bhavit, if we can go over only on the questions,
That would be
and
first priority, sir.
that would be first priority. I know, because everybody wants to have. I would like to keep this open, and then please raise your hands, and then just bombard me with questions. Whatever that I know, I can definitely answer. If it helps you a lot, that will be really, my purpose will get served. If not, we can also get in touch, through emails, or later on we can actually see how best we can take it forward. And I personally like, helping people in terms of giving them a guidance, because we've had very few people, and then we know what it is to struggle throughout the path, and then we did not have a guiding force, although we had very few of them, lucky of us to have that kind of a guiding force. But then we need to like progress further, and we need to help each other in the community to upcome for all the help that we can provide for the upcoming doctors and researchers. And then you never know, there is a huge potential within this community which can go big and grow big as well. So I'm here to share all that I can, and then you can just bombard me with whatever questions that you have, right? So thanks, Bhavit, for the lovely introduction. And probably if I can add a little more here, is that BNYS, as I have come into this field, it is not by real choice. I can say that it was accident, right? So, and we had not much choice at that particular time, where we had to undergo whatever the science streams that were available at that particular moment of time. We had not much of a choice. So I had entered BNYs as a part of a chance, but then later on, it helped me to get glued to this particular system, so that it had changed some perspectives of life and health and entire well-being. So I'm grateful for that, right? So yes, Bhavit,
Yes.
how do we go ahead?
So the sequence they know, sir. So they will ask questions according to sequence. After that, we'll take another questions as usual.
Sure, sure.
Hello, sir. Good evening,
Hello,
sir.
good
I
evening.
am Mahima
Hi,
from
Mahima.
Arvas College of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences.
Hi.
So, my question to you is this: what are medical communications? And can you explain us about the working of the field you are into?
Okay. Medical communications is a very specialized area in the health and pharmaceutical research. Now you must be wondering, after having done naturopathy and yoga, why am I into this field, right? So when I was actually working after having done my PhD, communication all about your research was one of the area that I was very much interested in, because um, it is very important that we communicate whatever that you do in our day-to-day life. And even if you are discussing with your patients, you're discussing with your colleagues, what is that the first thing that you do is a communication, right? So I was always interested in how best to communicate, in what are the different ways of communication. And it is important that the scientific knowledge that we have needs to be communicated in different platforms and different varieties. and in different ways, I would say, and to different audiences, right? And it all comes to a particular, point, that how best can you communicate with how, whatever the complex level that you have, how simple that you can make it to, communicate. That is important here in terms of scientific communication, right? And there is a niche audience for this as well. So after having done that, my PhD in yoga, then going to, academics, I was again there for 3 years, working in JSS College Naturopathy in Ooty. I found out that clinical research, communication in clinical research, is becoming one of the booming industry, and I wanted to actually understand, how stringent is the process this particular medical and clinical research line is getting into, and what is that they go through so that the communication comes out much better. What is that the quality of research that is coming out much better? How is that we can actually adapt to our systems of medicine, was my overall goal. And that's how I had taken a course in regulatory affairs in clinical research, which was a intense crash course. I did that, and after having done that, I jumped into medical communications field. This is important because you know that in the pharmaceutical industries, it's a big regulated industry now, and you know that every day there are new medicines coming up because of the evolution of the diseases, and also the unmet needs that are coming up. Although by heart I am a naturopath, right? I do practice, and I do follow that. I don't believe in medicines. What I really like is the processes that they go through, in terms of communication, how a molecule gets developed from the inception onwards until it's get marketed at various levels, at various phases of clinical research. How is it being communicated, and who are the stakeholders? What all it needs, to be there in particularly, to be submitted as a communication plan, right? And who looks into it, who approves it, what happens to it after it comes out. So it's a huge process in entirety, and that is where I think these pharmaceutical industries are doing better, because they have a particular process to follow, right? And of course, this is all having, they do have a lot of budget, and it's a billion industry. But our industry is nothing but, it's upcoming. So we really have to fuel a lot of money to do this kind of clinical research in our field. But since that is product based, because once the research is it has undergone the stringent process, it gets approved, then the product get marketed, and that's how they get the money. So there is a return of investments, but here it is not like that. We really have to work on the patient well-being here. So there is a little bit differences in the way that these both industries run, but communication becomes an important aspect in every stage of the research, and there are different audiences that you need to communicate into. The first thing is the scientists, your immediate stakeholders, then you have doctors, the peer community, and then the patients as well. It is important that we communicate at all these levels so that they understand the why and how of it, right? So that is important, and that's how I had gone into this particular field. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Great. Who else?
Good evening, sir. Myself, Sushita, second year, BNYS. I'm from Gandhi Naturopathic Medical College, sir. And
Okay.
my question is, what is the scope of BNYS graduates in the field, and what are the skills that graduates should possess to get into the field?
First thing is that what I have observed within this community is that most of us must have joined, as taking my own as an example, is that we were not interested in the science itself, right? And we may have landed in BNYs either by pressure or by, just as a trial and error, and just to be like, agreeing with your parents, or some family pressures. So that's the first thing that, we may, most of us must have come into this field. But what I would like to say is that, is try to understand from the knowledge perspective, try to understand from the wonderful science behind perspective, and don't fall under the pressure of it. And once you start enjoying, understanding, knowing how, being curious and inquisitive becomes, as a part of your learning process, then you will definitely enjoy any science. So that is the one thing that we need to develop. And what I have seen in most of the colleges, when even I was also teaching, is that our teaching was also not up to the mark, right? And that's how students may lose interest in this. So what I would like to emphasize here for all the student community is that, keep your curious minds always, high, um, um, highly curious, and be active in terms of understanding the science behind it. Learn from your own, teachers or lecturers, or peers or other doctors or whoever. Network better, and also like try as much as possible, reading the current science behind our therapies or whatever that can actually add fuel to your, curious mind. That is important to understand, the science behind it. So once you understand that, you will definitely become one of the most successful person, in this field. And that is the one skill I would like to say that to develop is to, develop your curiosity, and to understand and go as much as possible in depth in understanding how and why of everything that we do here, right? You apply your our own the modern, medical scientific perspective. At the same time also, like, try to put the philosophy behind it, from the naturopathy perspective or yoga perspective, and try to see where is that, there is, there is an agreement between the two concepts, and what are the gaps that is there behind it. And that is where we can actually, like, uh, input a more of value into our therapies. So that's the one skill I would say, is to be curious. The other skill that is required is, improve your communication skills, right? You take part in terms of all the scientific debates, writing whatever that it requires, so that, you can put forth your ideas better. That use that platform in whichever way that can help you to upskill yourselves. And also, scientific understanding is what is important here, and networking. So these are all the three skills that is very important in terms of, getting ahead into your field. And need not be, everybody cannot get into the research also. Like, some people may have different interest altogether. For example, some people might want to get into, serving patients. But even for them, if you want to help them understand what exactly is happening, you need to make science very simple to them. That's also require a lot of communication skills, right? For such thing also. And also you might be wanting to write a simple books also. You might be, wanting to write some blogs, right, about our therapies and the unique benefits out of it. So everything requires and communication now. And nothing is nothing is progressing forward without a communication. So whatever that you do right now requires one or the other form of communication, through various medias, and digital is now taking an upper hand. And now you have seen people are doing wonders with digital communication. So that is important to, develop, and your own communication skills, and take up whatever that additional courses that requires for you to develop. That is what I can definitely say, right?
Thank
Hope,
you, sir. Thank you so much.
yes, I hope I answered that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, myself Shankara, internship student from Alva's College of Naturopathy and Dietetics Sciences.
Okay. Hi.
Sir, my question is tell us more about the projects you are involved in and the groundbreaking conclusions from them.
Um, well, to start from my PhD days onwards, maybe I can say that I was involved with a lot of pranayama research. So we cannot say groundbreaking because research is always adding on from whatever that was built up. But the understanding keeps on moving from one concept to the another, and it keeps on adding more and more depth about the scientific understanding of it. My research on pranayamas was very, very interesting because we know from the yoga concepts that breathing through different nostrils have a different effects, especially the left brain activity, right brain activity, and breathing through both nostrils has the balancing activity. So my research added further understanding in terms of how autonomic nervous system gets its activities through breathing and manipulating through particular nostrils. And suppose if one side of the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is highly active, how can you bring it down through manipulation of the nostril? This is the one aspect of the research that I had worked upon, and it had been published. Apart from that, there are different interesting aspects to see that what areas of the brain that gets activated when you do a different types of yoga breathing practices, especially the area of our what you call reticular activating system, or those are the seat of consciousness that we would say. There are different nuclei that actually get activated during different types of breathing, and how it relays the information to the either side of the brain. That was very interesting to see. And what could be the therapeutic implications of these particular practices, and how can we take it further to develop a therapy based on that was was the outcomes of this research. And we have also seen a lot of research work on students, especially children, right? Yoga breathing practices helped in different aspects in terms of helping them to increase their memory scores, increase attention span, doing some fine motor tasks. All those things are very important in our day-to-day life, especially when they are also into academics and also doing the day-to-day work. These are all important aspects of it, which can be developed and enhanced by practices of yoga. So those were the wonderful 10 years of my life I had spent. Also, what I have seen personally is working with multiple sclerosis patients, and the yoga relaxation techniques have helped them, relax their spasticity of muscles, although it was very transient. But that is where I understood the power of, mental relaxation, the relaxation through mind modification, relaxation through guided imagery techniques that can help in terms of reducing the spasticity in these people, where there was hardly any therapies that were available during then. So these are the and I understand that how it can alter the immune functions inside, the autoimmune functions. So besides that, I had also worked in the area of psychologically disturbed patients like schizophrenia and Down syndrome. We saw the different sleeping patterns, and giving them yoga practices helped them to be more grounded and acceptance of their own self having problem. That is important for them or their own self. And also, being in touch with reality is what is important, so that they are aware of their surroundings and they're very well oriented. So these were the interesting research in my yoga career. And after that, I was into medical communications. I was entirely in the area of immunology, and although I worked for pharmaceutical companies, what I've seen is that I worked for different um, uh, very niche and often drugs, which how is it going to help to suppress certain kind of infections, and also how it works on very rare immunological disorders. So what I have understood is that even though the pharmaceutical industries are coming up with more and more medications, but what they have not conquered yet is the mind modification and its benefits on improving your own immunity, right? So that is where we are very strong, and that is where we need to work much more scientifically. So
Thank you, sir.
thank you. That was a wonderful question. Okay, next who's
Yes, so that, yes.
yeah, who is going next?
Really, she's there.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is Kriti Mishra from Subhati College of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences, Meerut. I'm from second year. And my question to you is how an approach towards diagnosis can be made by a naturopathy physician in OPD or IPD setup as to establish diagnosis.
Can you be more clear? Uh, how do we establish diagnostic methods? Is what you asked.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. By a naturopathy physician.
Right. So, what is the current approach that you have seen, if I may ask that?
Sir, approach of diagnosis.
Yeah. So, what is that you have seen? What is the current approach? Because I'm not into practice, I would want to understand a little more so that I can add to it.
I am. Sir, I'm in second year, so I
Okay.
wanted to have an idea.
Okay. Okay. So, the diagnostic methods through naturopathy is little bit different. There are different ways of understanding the human body, right? We have something called encumbrance theory. We have something called toxins theory, right? Uh, so and the good part of is that in the curriculum we have even modern diagnostic methods. So, what is important to us is to understand the modern diagnostic methods as well, right? And since we have a lot of diagnosis that is depending upon investigation based, so I would say that we follow that in terms of diagnosing a particular problem, that is fine. But you try to understand from the naturopathy perspective also in terms of understanding what are the toxins that is there that is causing, what are the encumbrance theory that is actually can support this particular problem. For example, if you diagnosed a person having a diabetes, you know what is the encumbrance theory behind it, what are the toxins behind it, right? Why is it happening? And you can understand the root cause of the problem is because of the going against the nature, living against the nature, right? Faulty dietary habits. So this becomes hand in hand. So you never actually put your diagnostic methods down and then keep other thing upper in upper hand. You always have to think, and align these age old theories into these modern diagnostic methods so that you understand both the science and philosophy perspective, and you will be able to express and explain better to the patients why do you think this is the problem for you, right? The modern diagnostic methods can get into the understanding at the cellular level, but they fail to express in terms of a human body as a whole, right? They fail to bring in the other aspects of health as well. For example, psychological health, mental health, or spiritual health. So they don't bring in all this areas in terms of diagnostic methods. So our system has that upper hand. So what I would suggest is that we need to understand both, because we have a dual edge, and we will be able to do better when we have this proper alignment, and understanding of both the systems and apply it in our, diagnostic methods. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm Anuja Anand from Swastika
Yeah.
Kalyan Institute of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences. I'm a final year student.
Okay.
So my question would be, how an individual student in research can introduce own ideas to be worked and supported by the institute?
Yes, this is a good question, interesting question. So, I can also like put a little more, understanding from our own experience. Like when we were in the internship, so we had a little exposure in the Svyasa Yoga. That's where we had 3 months of posting there, and then we did a little bit of, we had an understanding of the basic research, and then we brought in Dr. Naveen and myself. We worked on a project with yoga on tuberculosis, right? So, uh, what was important here is that how can we apply our learnings? That is important, right? So as I said earlier when I started talking about is the skill that is important here is to be curious and be inquisitive and find out, right? Learn. And that is where one can develop that particular aptitude for research from your own. You don't have to go through any formal courses. Whatever that knowledge that you can start beginning with it, right? And in your own internship practices, or wherever that you are there as a medical officer, what you need to do is proper observations on a particular case that you have, right? And making a daily note of it on a regular basis, uh, uh, without missing not even a single particular data point. For example, even if you are taking a simple blood pressure, right, on particular patient, now if you want to study that particular patient in depth, what was happening through whatever naturopathy treatments that were given. So what is important here is that your measurement method needs to be as much as possible stable. It should be constant, right? You can vary everything around, but then your measurement, the treatment, and also the patient, they need to remain constant, and that they should follow a particular routine without changing anything, right? So this is the methodological way of looking into it, and document it properly. So if a if a patient has come on a day one, and he is undergoing treatment until day 15, so every day if you start making the observations on a particular period, on a particular time, on a particular parameter, without failing into avoid, without actually avoiding any of the parameters, and noticing it daily on a particular time and date, keeping everything very specific. If you start documenting it, that itself becomes your own personal research, right? That's how you will be able to see the effect of any particular treatment. So that comes with the parameters. For example, now if you want to alter the treatment modalities, right? So you can understand from various hospitals, and from various treatment modalities, from various books. These are the combinations of the treatments that are given. So you want to add something more into it, or you want to delete something. So you can make one kind of the package, right? A treatment package for a particular treatment, and then start observing this. So we are actually given such kind of freedom within our in our institutions. Probably if you can discuss very openly with your own superiors, and then start getting them, for example, in through your entire internship period, and you want to observe these particular cases apart from your general routine, but it should be like, over and above that, you want to do it in the practice so that it will add value to your own internship. That is where you will start developing these research skills, right? And then later on, you see what interests you, whether you want to get into the research or you want to get into the practice. But this is how one can develop the attitude, right?
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Myself Padmashri K from studying in second year from Government Nature Cure and Yoga Medical College, Mysuru.
Hi.
My question to you is that we have heard lack of evidence from many doctors, but what could be the first time approach for the introduction of research to be learned and through which manner?
Lack of evidence. Could you explain more about this?
So, like our teachers also, they're not sure about. I'm in second, so about magnetotherapy.
Okay.
They say that there is lack of evidence and even authors are different.
Mm-hmm.
According to one author it is different and according to another author it is different.
Okay.
So how
Okay.
can we learn?
So what is important here is that both your students also along with your faculty. What I suggest is that to spend a lot of time in literature search. That's important. Um, we may not be having everything published from India. There are hardly any publications coming from India, but then there are a lot of other research coming from different parts of the world. Um, you know, the first and foremost thing what is important in any of our institutions is to have the access to be able to undertake literature search, and also get access to those kind of literature where it is not available, so that it becomes easy for us to understand what current evidences are available in a particular therapy, and what is that it is lacking. And this can be done with the help of both students and also the faculty. So you should become a kind of a group, right? And I would seriously suggest that take this particular matter to your institutions and form a group. uh, you can make many things, right? You can go to different libraries, or you can search online, get access to online research, and start pooling as much as evidence as possible, and try to bring it to a common consensus. Say that only to that particular level the evidence is available, and further we don't know. So whatever that is there can be accepted as much as possible, but look into it as critically as possible. And over and above that, what we can abide by is that the kind of philosophy behind it. And this is not scientifically proven. It is fine to accept what is available and what is not available so far, right? And that is where people like you can take this up further and develop a full-blown research out of this particular finding. So the lack of evidence cannot be just an excuse. Lack of evidence can definitely help you in terms of progress, and help you to become one of the important researcher in that particular field as well. So it's an opportunity, it's a challenge that has come through. So we should take that up and find out as much as possible from your own sources, and also with the help of your teachers and from the institutions. So that is where we can develop. And at the same time, whatever that new things that you have found out, since you have a good platform here, you have a community of your own students, right? Start passing this information, because all of this new information that you have right now needs to be passed on to the others, right? You need to help each other. You need to communicate, share your own knowledge so that everybody is on the same page, right? That is when the science progresses, right? And please, I suggest everybody that don't accept just the lack of evidence. Try to find out as much as possible that you have. Now, there are a lot of research that is coming up in the field of alternative systems of medicine. So even if you get few abstracts, you will be able to understand certain, science behind it. That should be enough for you to get more and more idea, right?
Sir. Thank you
Right.
so much, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good
Hello.
evening.
Good evening.
I am Ritu Shevani, fourth year BNY student from MDNYS, Vadodara, Gujarat. I wanted to ask you a few questions. There are actually three. Sorry.
Fine. You
Um,
can go on.
how can we as students be confident in this field or in this BNYS community? My second question to you would be, what skills can we learn from different medical streams to excel in our field and to promote our field much better way? And my third question would be, what inspired you to continue in medical communication field after doing BNY?
Okay, so can we take one by one? What's the first question?
It was about how can we be as students be confident as BNY as graduates or as future naturopaths.
Okay, so how can we be confident? We can certainly be confident. One thing is, as I told you, once you start, having a thorough understanding of the studies that you're doing right now, right? Um, what is important, especially in our field, is to have the basics stronger, right? Understand the physiology stronger, understand the biochemistry stronger. Everything needs to be much more stronger, because you will be applying this knowledge throughout, so that your once your basis the basics becomes much stronger, it'll become it'll add on to your own understanding, and you'll be able to develop a new understanding and in-depth understanding as and when you progress. And then when you get more and more newer ideas and newer findings, you'll be able to relate it to it better and better. So that is important, and that is where we become more confident. Once you know your own basic stuff, that's when you will get the confidence, right? And don't just depend upon what is being taught, but then self learning is also important. At the same time, you try to learn as much as possible. This is a wonderful age and stage that where you are in, to spend as much as possible in terms of learning. The other thing is that learn from, not from the exams perspective, learn from the understanding perspective, knowledge perspective, and also like finding that why and how. So once you actually start trickling your brains, you are not satisfied with what is there in the age old books. If you are still following Kellogg's, maybe like that's written in some 100 years old, right? And but we are still following that. We are not, come out with those traditional applications. We need to bring out a newer scientific explanation behind it. So that is where we need to be more confident about. That's where our basics needs to be more, be stronger in terms of understanding the basics, and that is how you can gain your confidence. Now, coming to your second question, what was the second question you said?
It was about what can we learn from different medical streams as skills with what we can acquire to help our field progress more.
See, medical science you already have, right? So as I said, there is nothing. I mean, once you understand, the basic science of it, you get everything. So from the different medical fields, is that what interests you? It depends upon on that, right? Suppose are you would you like to get into the clinical streams into it? You need to understand much more in terms of the pathophysiology, in terms of clinical medicine, what it is. So there are different streams that interests you, and that is where you can, you can get into that particular area and then start understanding in depth about it, right? Um, and also, suppose if you are interested in different therapeutic aspects of it in within naturopathy, you need to apply all of those. So whatever that, if you want to progress and understand in different aspects, what I come back to is your basic knowledge. Your foundation needs to be much stronger. That is where it all comes back to it, right? So that is interrelated. So I don't think there is a different answer to it, right? And whatever that interests you, I think you will definitely be able to do better and better and go in depth into this, right? And third question is about why did I get into it?
What inspired you to go on into medical communication?
For me, it's all about, irrespective of any field that I'm into, I was very much interested in communication of research, right? It could be anything. It could be like in naturopathy research. It could be like, yoga research. It could be pharmaceutical research. Research is a research, and what I understood much more in clinical research is the different methodologies of research, because here in yoga research, there are or naturopathy research, there are certain limitations in terms of like not getting into randomized control trials. Although now there are trials that are coming up, but then we had very limited exposure into different trials, right? And how these particular trials are conducted in the extremely regulated field, and how as a scientist you get the data inputs from the different countries, and then you get the entire data, and then how do you sit and make some explanation about the numbers that you get into it, because it's all about the data, right? You need to communicate the data, and if you look into the data, it will be very confusing. But that's a challenge. That's a challenge that I took, and then I started getting interest into it. How these numbers can bring out some kind of information, and how these numbers can speak to you, and what is that you can make sense out of it, and then how that can be communicated. So that was my interest into it. So the and after that, having done that regulatory writing and publications writing, I grew into leadership roles. So I was mentoring different groups, and then I became their leader and then supervisor. And it's a tough journey, I would say, because you need to be always on top of it. You need to know what you are, because as a BNY's graduate, you would not study the immunology or whatever the basic sciences as much as the other sciences, streams that they do. For example, people have done M pharmacy, people have done PhD in pharmaceutical sciences, where we don't even understand a single word about pharmaceutical sciences, right? We don't understand toxicology, we don't understand anything about the surgical aspects of it, but then yet you are sitting and writing all those aspects, you are sitting and writing. That's a challenge. So it was my own interest, and it's my challenge to myself, saying that would I be able to succeed in this field? And touch wood, I did that, because I had to prove myself in terms of other PhDs who have come from tougher sciences than what we have done. They have come with the postdoctoral experiences from abroad in different world renowned institutions. But then I had to stand at least head to head with them in terms of understanding, able to communicate with them, right? And we have to have the same understanding of the sciences, otherwise I would not be able to guide them, right? And I had also had the exposure to the global pharma clinical teams and leaders, right? And then we had to take up all the projects. We have to be conversant with it. It's a challenge for me. So I took it personally, because that's where my interest was to begin with. And see, there is no limitations if you really have that particular will, right? So of course there are very few people who got into this clinical research. I think I am the only person who deviated completely in a different field, and I'm happy whatever I'm doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sorry, sir, there's some network issues over here, and hence my video shall not be visible.
No
I hope I'm
problem.
audible.
Yes, you are very much loud and
Okay, sir.
yeah.
I'm Janvi, studying from Government Nature and Yoga Medical College, Mysore, a second year BNY student.
Okay.
My question to you is that how the philosophy's art system can be practiced in the system of medicine, as in practical aspect.
See, as I told you earlier also, have a proper understanding of a philosophy, because our way of looking at diseases and our way of looking at patients are different, and then they make a lot of sense. Because if you start understanding the encumbrance theory, and then if you start understanding what about the toxins, and how do they affect our body, they actually make sense when you look into it from the scientific perspective. So we don't have to change anything. You don't. Only thing is that you understand from the scientific perspective. So if you start understanding, say, what are toxins, right? Can you explain, in scientific terminologies? Toxin can be anything, right? So even whatever that comes out from our body is a toxin. So that could be explained very scientifically, beautifully. So have an understanding of this particular philosophy, and try to understand from the scientific perspective is what you need to do it. You don't have to do anything better. And nowadays, the awareness about the disease, the holistic health is becoming much better and better. It is progressing than what we were, when we started. And then people hardly knew anything about naturopathy. People just knew that they apply some mud, make us do fast, and then they send us home with after some exercises and all that. Of course, the only benefit they see is reducing weight. But now, as much as scientific research is progressing, we understood that there's lots and lots that we don't know about our own body, because there are a lot of interventions or techniques that can be altered through reversing of the lifestyle, changing of our living habits, dietary habits, and mental modification. All of those play an important role in terms of all these non-communicable diseases. So I would say these were wonderful philosophies that has come from through the ancient naturopathy systems of medicine. Whatever we need to do is that understand from the scientific perspective, so that you will be well conversant with the other medical systems of medicine, so that you can explain them. See, there is nothing right or wrong from any other systems of medicine. We are not here in terms of fighting with them. We are not in terms of competing with them. We are here in terms of integrating with them, because what is important right now is a patient centric treatment, right? What is most important for anybody is a patient, right? So as a healer, it is important that we provide them whatever therapy that it works. It could be a placebo effect or it could be a real effect. But what is important for a patient is that they need to get, help from the doctor, right? So we have to be in such a position that we should be able to, you know um, align with other systems of medicine, and we'll be able to work in terms of holistic way, right? So if a person is coming out with allopathy medications, and also willing to undergo naturopathy, never say that allopathy medications are bad for you. You can never say that. Don't put the confidence of the patient down. What you need to do is properly educate them. You try to help them understand what medications can help, in which areas that can help, and where they do not help, where they add more toxins in your body in forms of side effects, and how these side effects can be eliminated through the natural systems of medicine. That is where we need to educate the patient. So ultimately patient needs to get benefited. So I hope I answered your question. If you have, probably I can explain more.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm a fourth year student from Swastika Kalyan Institute of Naturopathy and Yogic Science. So my question is that how to approach the standard operational procedure for our therapies to be practiced in OPTs.
What do you mean by standard operational procedures? If you could explain a little more. Do you mean like treatment protocols, or what is that you meant?
Treatment protocols.
Treatment protocols. Okay, so I'm just thinking, from my own observations. So if you get opportunities to work in different hospitals, right? So apart from your own institutions and different hospitals, you may be finding different ways of administering certain treatments, right? And although the basic understanding would be same, but there may be a little bit of change in the way that is administered. It could be anything. For example, it could be a normal change in the way of temperature also, right? So for example, when we were working in JSS Uti, we were not able to administer all the cold treatments there, right? Because of the climatic conditions and because it's a hill station. So most of the cold treatments were not applicable at that particular area, and which means to say that you need to think differently in terms of what other alternative medication or treatments that can be given, and that is where one need to bring out alternate treatment modalities in terms of understanding the geography of the surroundings and the patient conditions. So there is no single operating procedure, I would say, is perfect. That needs to be looked into from different viewpoints in terms of the geographical conditions and the patient conditions. Everything actually alters. Our systems of medicine is so highly variable that anybody can give any kind of hydrotherapy and it works, right? But what I could suggest here is that what is universally followed. One thing is that you keep it as a gold standard, and what is that which cannot be administered in different areas in different conditions. That is what you need to understand, and probably make an observation and add on to this particular operating procedures or a treatment protocol, saying that in these conditions or this area, right, these things may not work for the following reasons. That is where you can actually add a value into our standard operating procedures. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Sorry, I could not hear you.
Thank you.
Hello? Did that answer your question?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, sir. My name is Aisha.
Hello.
I'm studying in Government Nature Cure and Yoga Medical College, Mysore.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, what can be the approach to improve the education towards the practical aspects of learning of naturopathy subjects? So what can be the steps taken so that we improve our practical knowledge? So.
I mean, there are different ways, I would say. Practical knowledge, do you mean to say you need to have an exposure for the more of the clinical side or the
naturopathy subjects, basically, because where we lack, most of them where we lack is in naturopathy. Like theoretical, they'll be learning. but practical wise, most of them, they just don't.
Okay.
So I'm talking about students.
Right. So that again depends upon whether you have those facilities. We had the exposure right from our first year onwards to go to the hospital, right? Where we saw the applications of all our therapies from the first year onwards, and then patients getting benefited, and we ourselves administering therapies. So I think our institutions can still follow this particular way of practically teaching how the therapies are administered, and then uh, and once you start doing it, you will be able to understand much more. And then by the time that you finish your course, you'll be definitely will be having more understanding, and will be pro at it, and you would know the in and out of all these therapies. So that is the way to enhance the practical exposure. And uh, uh, and also what we had is that the collaboration with the other laboratories, for example, any kind of physiological experiments or other experiments and all that, we had definitely different collaborations with medical colleges. But naturopathy, there is no better than the going to the hospital to understand the applications of it, right? Theory you can definitely understand, but then yes, sometimes you would require if you want to understand the cellular mechanisms of our therapies and all that, that definitely is a practical question. But since the institutions are progressing in a much better way, they will have more collaborations. I think one can get into this area and understand more and more about how these things are working, and the practicality can be given an exposure to all the students. So yeah, that's what I can say all about.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So that's the last question. So what we have gone through, sir. And
Okay.
if any other questions are there, the direct questions, if anybody want to ask rather than
Yeah.
from this.
Yeah.
So that's open for everyone. They can unmute and they can talk to you, sir. We'll just wait for 1 minute, sir, if they are having any questions.
Sure. So I would like to tell the folks here is that please feel free to ask questions, even in your colleges or in your classrooms. Don't be scared of asking questions. No question is a stupid question. The questions which you have is question for you to get to know. So don't feel shy, and don't be scared of asking questions. So please be open in terms of asking questions.
Maybe, sir, there is no such questions. Maybe we covered from first of your journey, like how we get into the advanced to the today's what you are doing, like
Okay.
right now with your communications in your research aspects. So I hope it was very good for the students who have attended, and it was very good for you to explain your journey in such formats. And it was a good experience for all of us. So thank you so much, sir, to come on this platform and share which was not learned any student like in the classroom also. If you ask to anyone, that is not learned in the classroom. So that's a very good perspective what you have shared with all of us. Thank you so much, sir, for that.
I thank you so much, Pavit. I hope some of us have learned certain things here, and then I hope I was be able to add some value to your quest. And definitely we can interact more, Bhavit. If you want, if they want to approach me, you can give them my email ID also. I'll try to answer and help as much as possible. Okay. And thank you once again for providing such a nice opportunity to interact with you guys. And thanks a lot once again, and have a bright future. I wish you all the best for everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. And the responses are coming in the chat box. Everyone wants to thank you for this wonderful session. And we are looking forward for you to come again and share some different perspectives which you are learning through your new journey.
Sure, sure. Anytime. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone. Goodbye, sir.
Bye-bye.